the episode number.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So one, two. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Friends of Zeus podcast.
Hmm.
This is your Friends of Zeus correspondent, Hot Carl, here with Michael. As you can see, we are short-staffed
Hmm.
today. Our fearless leader, Zeus, he's on hiatus for a little while, but he's okay. And Desiree was unavailable tonight. It is, we always put the date, but it's a Wednesday. We're
Yeah,
recording on Wednesday, April 9th. And there's so much going on, right, Michael? There's so much to talk
there's
about.
so much going on. I mean, all the Doge cuts have finally hit Friends of Zeus podcast. I mean, we have to make
Yeah,
do with less podcasters, apparently.
yeah,
Apparently
yeah.
having five or six is waste. It's
It's
wasteful.
too much. It's too
Too many.
much. Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, yeah. I mean, Tom went first.
yeah.
And now Zeus, even though we're still going to keep the name, we got to
Yeah.
keep the name,
Yep.
because this is episode 215.
Phew.
And
Yeah.
so at this point, that's the name of the show.
That's the name of the
That's it.
show. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's it.
mean, Doge cuts or not. We went right from we started during the pandemic and now we're surviving Doge. We are pretty resilient as a
Yeah,
podcast.
it's quite a run.
So what are we talking about
I
today?
don't know. I mean, there's so many different stories going on in the news. I mean, you and I were texting today,
Yeah.
and it seemed like we would pop from one subject to another. Like there were a couple. First, we wanted to talk about a couple of things, and then it evolved into maybe we have to talk about this other thing.
Yeah.
It's just it's crazy. I don't know. I'm looking at that photograph behind you, so
Oh
that's sort
yeah.
of that's tempting to get into first,
We
but
can do
that's a
that.
I'll what would you like to discuss first,
Well, yeah, I
Michael?
mean, we got a little list of stuff and
Yeah,
just a disclaimer. We're not, we don't purport to be subject matter experts on everything. There's certain things that we are, but really, the news affects us, what's going on in the world and events, and there's a lot of crazy things going on right now, and they affect us just like they affect our viewer and people, you know, get their news from various different places. But sometimes it's good just to talk about it. Like again, there's this thing where there's like appeal to authority. Like if you aren't a subject matter expert on a issue, you're just like not allowed to talk about it or whatever, or people will try to zing you. But we're going
yeah,
to keep things kind of general. I'm not
sure,
really interested in like dates and names so much, but just kind of a high level picture of some of these news stories that are going on because some of them are very alarming and there is just a lot changing in the world right now. I think
yeah,
for the better, but I guess we'll find out about that.
yeah. We can
Um,
get into that. We can get into that too.
yeah, I mean the behind me, these are some B-2 Spirit stealth bombers taking off from their base in Missouri. They're all kept out there. Actually, I don't think they're taking off. They're just taxiing. But in the news, about a week ago, the U.S. Air Force sent six of these bad boys over into the theater around Iran. I'm trying to remember the exact country they sent them to, but I just can't. It's a small country we have a base at. Um, each one of these has the destructive capability of like, an entire bomber squadron from World War II, probably multiple squadrons. It doesn't take many of these things to do a lot of damage. And the thing that is very provocative about bringing them into that particular area around Iran is, as far as we know, Iran has no real way to defend against this particular asset. It flies higher than anything they have. It's invisible to the radar and the anti-aircraft imaging technology that they have. So they can pretty much fly at will into the country, and they can carry quite a bit of ordnance, both conventional and nuclear. And it's the other thing I found out, which I thought was amazing, in the decades these things have been around. This is the single largest deployment. It's the most, I mean, we're going through, the Afghanistan pullout, dealing with Iraq. This is the largest deployment of this particular plane in its history, which I thought was interesting. Again, you don't need many of them. But anyway, so over in Iran, for years now, they have been working very diligently to get enough weapons grade um, plutonium enriched to a point where they can make some warheads. And they are the people that whose job it is to know this stuff are basically saying like they are at that point or very near that point. Um, this would not just be for the neighbors of Iran. They've already developed their intercontinental missile capability. So we would, in the United States and pretty much anywhere else in the world would also be vulnerable. Um, no one, I don't think anyone's saying that as soon as Iran gets a weapon, they're going to use it instantaneously. Although who knows? I mean,
Right.
they're run like a death cult over there, right? We're the great
Yep.
Satan. They want to wipe Israel off the map. And when people tell you they're going to attack you, it's usually a good strategy to believe that, take them at their word, and deal with it
Sure.
thusly. Um, Israel, Netanyahu has come out numerous times and said like Iran will not get to the point of breakout with weapons, which everyone reads. Israel will just take
Obama.
take bomb the crap out of them, take out their capability of doing it, and Israel has shown that they have the intelligence infrastructure and the people on the ground to know this sort of thing because they've been pretty much taking out leaders in Iran and Iran's proxies at will for the last 2 years,
Yeah.
much to their surprise. So again, this is like not getting almost no airplay, but this is a big deal. And what has happened, the thing where this has now entered the news, even though this has been developing for years, is Trump proposed face-to-face direct meetings, between U.S. diplomats and diplomats from Iran. I don't think that's happened. I didn't check this, but my guess is that that hasn't happened in decades. Like, I don't think we've had direct talks with Iran. And
What
yeah,
about back in the day with, because my understanding of it, Mike, you probably remember this. When Obama was president, there was an agreement
oh yeah,
that he had brokered a deal that involved giving a lot of cash to the government of Iran. Remember, I mean, like they
hmm
said pallets of billions of dollars in
oh yeah,
cash.
oh yeah,
And my understanding of the arrangement was that Iran sort of agreed that whatever nuclear development they were doing, that it would be allowed to be subject to inspection, so that it was clearly not being used for warheads, let's say, or for a military purpose. It was for like nuclear energy,
correct.
essentially. So that was the deal. And then when Trump won in 2016, he said, "F that. We're
hmm
not dealing with you. We're not just going to keep giving you money to to behave
Right.
in a sense." So he ended the deal. I think Biden put it back into place. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, Biden pretty much, yeah, he I don't know if the deal was officially like stamped back into place, but for all intents and purposes, he took the sanctions off Iran, which allowed them to sell fuel on the global market, which took them from being a destitute country financially at the end of the Trump term to ingesting, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars by being able to ditch the
Export.
sanctions and sell their product. And they were able to thank Biden for that by funding the Houthis, funding
Yep.
Hamas.
Yep.
You know, they have proxies all over the Middle East, and
Yeah.
they went for it. So, I don't know. I mean,
And
this,
then
yeah,
and then also were they subject to inspection again? Because the way they're talking about this nuclear development in Iran, like that you just talked about, it
Hmm.
seems like they've had this ability to be developing weapons without any kind of prohibition or inspection for the last 4 years. For them to be dangerously close again.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think Biden was like their watchdog anymore. Like I don't think we were
He,
really watching what they were doing in any way.
yeah. I mean, part of the problem is, frankly, during the Biden administration, you had foreign policy being run by 30-year-olds year
Blinken,
olds. Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, just people that had no idea what they were doing.
right.
And they were ideologues. And part of
Hmm.
the thing in what we were dealing with Iran for our entire lives, there are many schools of thought on world order, right? And there's people that try to kind of mold the world to fit their image of what it should be, I guess.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's a school of thought that Obama and his folks, and a lot of people in the Democrat Party subscribe to, that in order to have stability, you need to have all of the countries equally capable of annihilating each other. Apparently, again, they haven't expressly said this, but they have
Right.
made arguments that, in order to have a peaceful Middle East, you need to have a strong Iran. You need to have a strong Syria. There shouldn't be this power differential.
Right.
Now, in reality, when you have a theocratic, like Islamo-fascist regime like you have in Iran, I don't know that I need them to be equal in power um, to a democracy in Israel that has representative government and allows anyone to live there. Like, I don't know that I need to put these two organizations on the same level,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
And
no, I hear
yeah.
you. I hear you. And but there's another, I mean, it's funny. What I caught about this escalation, I happened to listen to. I'm a fan of the journalist Glenn Greenwald, right?
Mm,
He's been very critical of Israel, okay? Just
mhm.
in general. He's not one of these, reporters or like American representatives that just everything Israel does is
Is
fine. Like
great.
he's not that at all.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like Dave Smith where he just, is very forgiving of everything Palestine has ever done based on how they've been treated. But Greenwald pretty much calls balls and strikes. He doesn't really let anybody off the hook.
Yeah.
And like he was talking about how, Pakistan has nukes and India
Mhm.
has nukes and North Korea has nukes. And
Yeah.
obviously Russia's got nukes and we've got nukes and France got nukes. So what's the harm in Iran having them? So there is that school of thought you're talking about. Like he was an example of it. I literally heard him saying this today, and now you're talking about how people have this idealistic view of the world.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's
I
that. There's
I didn't.
that, but on the opposite end in our government, there's also this sort of specter of the neocons who seem to want any excuse. Like, I mean, supposedly back in the day, under even before Bush, there was a grand plan to institute or to make happen regime change all over the Middle East. And obviously, they tried it in Afghanistan, big fail.
Hmm.
We tried it in Iraq, not much better.
No.
There's things going on like God knows Syria, Yemen, what's going on with and look what we did with Libya. And that was another thing Greenwald pointed out. He said, okay, well, let's look at Libya. Libya was convinced by the Western allies to stop their nuclear program, to just end that. We don't need you to have it. We'll protect you. We'll look out for you. Come on, Gaddafi, join the West. Everything's going to be great. And then we totally backstabbed him. We overthrew him. The guy got raped and murdered in the street, and his country's totally just awful now. Like it's
Yeah.
just devolved into chaos, right?
Yeah.
So when you see an example like how that man and how that country was treated, and then you're Iran, right? So if we're gonna try to play nice with them in negotiations and say, hey, come on, you don't need this, you don't need that, like I don't know if they're gonna necessarily buy it, and I don't know if I
No.
blame them for not buying it.
Yeah. No.
Um,
I think they're behaving rationally
in a
for
way,
them.
yeah.
But
And
the
then
thing,
and then
yeah.
I know, and then you got, but they are and they're not, Mike, because like you said, they put, they still hate Israel. They want it wiped off the map, and that's why they fund all these terrorist groups, and that's why Hamas was given a green light, and why the Houthis are brazen enough to try to blow up every ship that passes their coast.
Yeah.
That's Iran is behind that. And if you remember, like, I don't know how many, maybe it was about a year ago, where Iran actually like bombed, they dropped some, or they launched rockets at Israel
Oh yeah,
proper.
they've done it twice. Yeah.
They've done it right. And then Israel has like their Iron Dome,
Yeah.
picks up most of that. And then Israel, I believe, retaliated into actual Iranian territory.
Yes.
So this is already escalating anyway.
Yes. It's just
So the
they just
fact
don't
that
want it to go
Trump,
nuclear though.
well, right, we don't want it to go nuclear. So the fact that Trump, we know what he does, right? Like he flexes the muscles, he overstates what he's looking for. Like it's the art of the deal, right? Like
Hmm.
he'll say, okay, I want $100 million from you, but he's really looking, he'll settle for like 60,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so that's just a negotiation tactic. So I'm hoping that those bombers behind you is just a little flex. Like, you know
I
what?
think it is. Yeah.
This is what we got. And oh, they have bunker busters.
Yeah.
So you're not hiding. Like we got you, so
Hmm.
let's behave, you know what I mean? Like we'll bomb you out of the Stone Age. Um I
We're
hope
back to
that's
it.
all. I hope that's it. But
Yeah.
but
I
I
mean,
don't know. I don't know if this is because here's Israel. Netanyahu, he actually said in his little presser after he met with Trump that he wants this to be a Libya style, you know, exorcism of any nuclear weapon capacity. Like he wants us to be able to go in there and just, totally undo everything they've done
yeah.
and have them give over whatever they have. And he actually mentioned Libya. And
Hmm.
when you look at how that turned out for that country, like it's almost like Netanyahu is, I don't know. It's just I just thought it was kind of like a, I don't, it just it just seemed inappropriate. Like you're gonna bring that up as a negotiating, like I mean, you're basically telling them you're gonna do whatever we want,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, but and I get it. It's if Iran wasn't on record coming out and saying that as soon as we get a nuclear weapon, we are going to wipe Israel off the map. Like, it probably was not a good idea to say that for 20
No,
years
it's a terrible
because
idea to say that.
because now it's like, if you're in Israel, you're like, why aren't we taking them out? Like they have sent missiles in here before.
Yeah,
The rhetoric for decades has been that they want to annihilate us, and now they're close to having the capability
yeah,
of doing it. It's like, I don't
and
know. I mean,
and on top of it, they're funding and they greenlit to some degree. We have to assume what Hamas did
yeah,
in October of what is it now? 2 years ago, a year and a
October
half ago.
7th, 2.5 years, 23.
Oh
No,
gosh,
no,
so
no, year and a half.
a
So
year
it'll
and a
be
half.
2 years this October.
Year and a half, which was an invasion that killed 1,400 plus people. I mean, it's just
40,
blood.
I just heard this the other day. I forgot. 40 Americans were killed that day.
Yeah.
40
Wow.
American citizens were slaughtered that day. And how is it that how is that number not like on the front page and 100-point type of the New York Times? And why is that statistic hard to find? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
astonishing to me.
That is crazy that and that we didn't know that like
Yeah,
very quickly after that because obviously they when they're counting the bodies and they're figuring out who's who, the bodies that they recovered, it was probably not too long before they knew, oh my gosh, this is an American, this is an
yeah.
American, this is an American, and that wasn't covered at all
I mean,
that I know of.
and just the lying, and now it's like, oh, we're gonna look at the figures, it probably wasn't 50,000 people in Gaza killed, and actually, about 75 to 80% of the numbers that we reported as civilian deaths, women and children, were actually military age males
Right.
that were in Hamas. And again, here on our little podcast, year and a half ago, we were saying this exact same thing, just
Yep.
because there was already evidence of it out there that they were using like these crappy statistics. So I'm segueing into a second topic here, just with the media, and people need to remember just how much they lie. And when I say the media, I mean specifically like CNN, MSNBC, the lettered media, New York Times, Washington Post. They are still entrenched bureaucracy first, American citizens last on everything
Yeah.
they do. The books are coming out now where the chattering class is all sharing stories about like when they knew Biden was out of it and the ethical struggle they had on whether, how much to report to the American people when, again, even on our little podcast, 3 years ago, we were like calling out that he was, unfit for office. And then all of a sudden it's like a surprise later. And again, all the things that we're talking about, with this Iran situation, we wanted to talk about SCOTUS and the district court judges and the tariffs and, all that good stuff. The fact that we still have a media that is propagandizing everybody so dramatically and that it's hard, even if you're looking for the real story, it's still hard to find it, and that's dangerous, I mean, again, all these books coming out, this guy Whipple, who was like an aide for Biden, is like, oh, let me take you into the palace intrigue of how we were able to deal with this guy who was, having like sixth stage dementia and he's still the president. And yet, only like 7 months ago, I remember being lectured to by the corporate media and the likes of like George Stephanopoulos and about how
Yeah.
we shouldn't believe our lying eyes. You know, they
Yeah,
want it
and that
both ways, and now they
yeah.
want to make money on it, and they want to be all magnanimous, like, oh man, it's one of the things about being a journalist. Sometimes you do. I'm like, no, man, you are a propagandist. You are a rhetorical, like, bullshit artist, basically.
Yep.
And we know it. The emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
But you get into stuff like the tariff story, and this one I just want to I've just been talking to people about this to get their impressions on it because, and I'd love to know your impressions of this, Jack. But when I look at this, I'm like, he's doing this is a means to an end. Like
Yeah.
anyone that has been following Trump or knows anything about him, and I'm not talking about like his negotiating tactics. I mean just him in general. Um, this is a means to an end. The goal, and this is in my opinion, this is me talking, his goal with these tariffs is not to have tariffs on all these other countries for the next 50 years. His goal is to not have tariffs and to not have all of these rules, that are blocking trade between this country and this industry and that business and whatever. The
Right.
advantage that the United States has is that we're the biggest dude on the block. We're the biggest economy. We China imports 5 times in the United States what the United States imports into China. So if there's a trade dispute, they're they're losing more than us,
Right.
right? I mean, does that make sense? I mean, it's like
Yep.
we buy this much from them, I'm sorry, we buy like this much from them, they buy like this much from us. So if we lose this sale to them, whatever. But if they lose this sale to us, that's a
Right.
huge problem for them.
Right.
But when you watch the news, it's like Trump's crazy. He's just like throwing out tariffs. He has no idea what's going on. He's like driving the bus like drunk and like he's
Right.
driving us off a cliff. And why is he tanking the economy? I mean, it's so unserious. And yet when I talk to people, they're just like, I can't believe Trump is purposely tanking the economy. And I'm just like, do you really believe that? Do you think that after he went through all of this, right? The lawfare, the being called a felon, getting shot at, almost killed, just so he could come in and wreck the world's economy, right? You got him. Whatever. It's so ridiculous. And that today, 70 countries who have come to the table and said, hey, let's figure this out.
Yep.
He's postponing their large increases and just setting them at a 10% baseline.
Yep.
And then he raised the tariff on China to like what, 125,
104% or something, I thought it was.
104%. And then the stock market gained like 2,600 points today. It's like the largest increase in trading. And, I talk to people and it's like, oh, 3 days ago, it's like Trump's destroying the economy. The Dow is down 2,500. And then it goes up and it's like, well, he can't take credit for that.
Right.
I'm like,
No, it's
you
funny
can't
too
watch
because
it day to day.
yeah, and we just talked about his whole art of the deal, right? About how he will extend, some ridiculous um ask or request. You know what I mean? Like he'll say I want the $100 million when he counts on maybe getting 60, right?
Right.
So when he saw all these lopsided tariffs that basically were screwing our country economically, he just said it was kind of like NATO. Pay your fair share. Like, why are we footing the bill for all you guys and you're not matching the GDP that you're supposed to put into your military? Why
Yeah.
is it all on us? It's almost the same type of thing with the tariffs. He just wanted to he's like, why are we getting screwed by all these countries that we do so much for? I mean, because
Hmm.
we do basically protect all of these countries. We have
Yeah.
the stronger military. They all count on us to basically come in and bail them out. So why are we getting porked financially? So we're going to even the playing field. If you have a tariff against us of this much percent, we're going to do that to you. That was the whole point.
Right.
And if you remember when he played hardball with Mexico and Canada a little while ago, and everybody was like, oh my God, what is he doing? Next thing you know, Mexico said, we're going to put thousands of troops on the border to help you fight the cartels and to end immigration. Canada said they would help secure their border as well. So
Yep.
sometimes flexing your muscles a bit gets you
He
what you want. It
he
just does.
it just
I mean,
does. He is spending his own political capital, and
yeah,
he is also spending the power differential capital. I don't know if I'm saying it right, that the United States has. In other words, we have the leverage.
yep,
Like, let's use it. We're not trying to take people's territory. We're not trying to, be the ruler of the planet. But we also don't want to get taken advantage of by everybody. And there's also this other thing. This is like the when you look at the Iran situation, you have to get back into the philosophy of like global diplomacy, and that there's people who feel that certain countries who should kind of rule the roost, and countries that are like degenerates who are like
okay,
wanting to mass slaughter their neighbors should not be considered right as at the table. So you got
right.
those two dynamics. Well, on this tariff side, you also have the underlying philosophy of globalism and having a global economy, and versus you know states being able to take care of themselves. I'm not saying this correctly, but in the United States, you look at something like shipbuilding or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like China makes like they can make like 100 ships a year. I'm just pulling a number out of my butt, but it's
right. I
something,
got
and we can make like five,
you.
just because the all NAFTA and all of that industrial know-how and the factories and the raw material resourcing and all that, it all went offshore. It all went
Yeah.
overseas.
He's
So
trying to
at a
bring some of it back.
at a certain point, I mean, the chip manufacturing, and there's people that are like, oh, this is 20th century economic um, mentality, and this is the 21st century. It's like, okay, I mean, I think you could make an argument that, there's some people that look at what Trump's doing and they're like, he's 30 years in the past. I don't know that it's that stark. I mean, I don't think it's like, well, the rules of economics are new now that we're in the 21st century. I mean, I would like to know that my country can be somewhat self-sufficient.
Yeah,
That would be good
yeah,
because we used to be. I mean, all of our
yeah.
pharmaceuticals come from overseas.
That's right.
I mean, the
That's right.
manufacturing of them, um, steel, I mean, automobiles. I mean, you know, we have
Y-
cars from South Korea now. Like we never had
Yeah,
cars in South
no.
Korea 20 years
And
ago.
and he campaigned on that, and I think there is sort of you could say it's a throwback or whatever. It's 20th century thinking, but I agree, and I agree with you, and I agree with him. Like, why are we shipping all this business overseas? It's because we're overregulated here. We have we have labor standards. We have minimum wage. We have fair wages or whatever. We're not China. We're not slave labor.
Right.
And so it makes it more cost effective for all these companies to go and have this stuff built in all of these other places where there's no OSHA and they don't
Yeah.
give a crap. If you fall into the machinery, tough shit. Who's next? Let's go.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what
The
I
kids
mean?
have little hands. Yeah,
Right, exactly. But I mean, so he's trying to combat that and he's trying to bring stuff, bring manufacturing back. And he campaigned on that. He went through the Rust Belts. He went and met people that used to work in factories and who have been out of work. I mean, look what Biden did the second he got in with all those all those energy workers that were on the Keystone pipeline and fracking and et cetera. They all basically were told learn how to code.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Oh, that
saying?
pissed me off so much when
Yeah,
that
me
happened.
too. Me too. That's what we should tell all these government employees now they're getting laid off. Go learn to
It's
code.
yeah, it's tough, man. It
Yeah,
is
so
yeah, and having people, and we talked about this before, but I have friends that are affected by this, and it's definitely effed up the way it's happening. But again, it's I don't know. It's like seeing how the sausage is made. It's not always nice, but
no, well, I mean, right, it's necessary. It's necessary. Whatever you're talking about the Doge cuts and everything
yeah,
else.
yeah,
Yeah, no, but it's like if you have some kind of I mean, you could think of it like a cancer that has to be removed. And in
yeah,
doing so, you're removing part of the healthy tissue. You know what I mean? Or think of it like The Walking Dead, the zombie apocalypse. Guy gets bitten on the arm. You got to lop off the arm real quick. You know what I
real
mean?
fast
So,
before the blood spreads. Yeah,
right, exactly. So, I mean, it's painful. It's not good for a lot of people. I feel bad for anybody who loses their job, right? But at the same time, there's a reason why this is being
right.
done.
It's not in a vacuum, and it's not
It's
being done out of spite or like ha ha
no.
ha ha ha. I mean, there's a reason behind it. Which,
Yeah, totally.
I had this thought. This was actually yesterday, and again, just kind of a big picture look at all this stuff. If you just look back at like the Democrat Party and who they put into power, the Schumers and the AOCs and the Bidens and the Obamas, they're always talking. Their perspective is here's what we're going to do for you. Like here's what government's going to do for you. We're going to give you this, 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 and this. You're going to give us this amount of your liberty, and we're going to take care of you, and we're going to
And your
fix
money.
everything, and
And
your
your money.
money. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. The government's going to do it. We're here to help. We're from the government. We're here to help. And then you look at the tone under someone like Trump, and Trump is saying, "I am going to go into the government, like, and I'm not going to get the government to fix everything for you. I'm going to go into the government, wake them the hell up, fix them, get them out of your way. And American people, I want you to go out there and kick ass. Like that's the tone. Trump isn't sitting there saying like, I am going to have the state fund a steel factory, in Nebraska or whatever. He's like, I'm going to get these tariffs off. I'm going to make it so that people that want to start a steel company or have a steel company and they wanted to grow it have an opportunity. It's just such
It,
a tonal shift of
yeah.
we want to do all this for you from the government versus we're going to get the government off your back and have at it, America. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
go for it because he's trying to unleash this economy. Again, I was watching TV the other day and someone was like, with all these tariffs, we're not going to be able to make I think they were talking about iPhones. We can't make an iPhone in this country that's it's going to be like 30, they were like, it's going to be like $3,500 or it's going to be $4,000. I'm like, no, it's not, because what's going to happen is if they say that, then there's a million other people out there that can make smartphones. Now, granted, not Apple smartphones, but for a lot less. It's called the market. Like
Right.
things aren't things aren't just going to go up in price and stay there forever. Because that's what the free market does. There is a price that the market will reach. All of this stuff that's happening right now, these tariffs, the negotiations, all of it has to be like ingested, digested. It has to we have to take some time to see how this pans out. And I think it's just going to be a few months. I don't think we're looking at a year, you
Oh
know.
wow, that's optimistic.
I really do. I think you're going to see it's an optimism thing. I mean, the stock market is is not the only sign, that's out there. But the stock market is kind of whatever it ends at every day, it's kind of a barometer of how people are feeling about the future, right?
Right.
It always has been.
It's like
So
speculation.
it's speculation. So if the population is being propagandized by the media that our president is drunk driving us in a bus off of a cliff and he
Hmm.
wants to tank the world's economy and they just keep hammering that and everyone's like, man, I better get my 401k liquidate. You know what I mean? Then that's not
Yeah.
good. But if people are like, you know what, this is totally screwed up, and there is some element that we don't know where it's going to go, but we think it's correct, and
Hmm.
there's going to be a ton of opportunity. I mean, this country, the United States, we have people who are entrepreneurs, and they are good at going in, and it could be anybody, at finding a need and filling it. And there, with this reshuffling of the deck, there are so many opportunities out there that we don't even know about yet, you know, that people are going to be able to exploit. I mean, that's the idea, I think. I mean, I guess from the way I see it, but
Yeah, I
I am
think he's
optimistic.
no, he's thinking about the future long term because let's say he doesn't do any of this stuff, right? We keep letting jobs in manufacturing be done by other countries. We rely completely on other countries for everything that we like to consume, right? So we're
Yeah,
just at a point we are this there's other talk about killing the Department of Education. Like, I mean, like the numbers show that generations are just getting, they're graduating, dumber and dumber, basically,
it's
not to be,
horrible.
yeah, right. So the future of this country is not looking bright on that front either. Um, the deficit grows every day, government wasteful spending. You have a populace that's getting more uneducated. The educated elites are all leaning one way politically, okay, which is communism, basically. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what. So I mean, it's almost like he saw the writing on the wall and said, "This all has to stop really quickly." And then you also look at the social safety nets like Social Security. That's not going to be around any for much longer either. You have a population that is dwindling, like the what do they call it? The rate above replacement.
yeah, yeah,
It kind of counts on every family. First of all, more families and them having at least 2.7 children or whatever it is to continue this gravy train. And now not only are those numbers down, the number of families is dropping because no
yeah,
one can afford housing, no one can afford, I mean, now, with the inflation on groceries, etc. Trump just saw this road that the country was on basically heading to a brick wall. I think he saw that. I think his advisors saw that. You heard Vivek talk about a lot of this on the campaign trail, like the future of the country and how we have to turn it. Trump
yeah,
himself obviously talked about the bloodbath, the economic bloodbath that was coming. And I mean, you got to at least admire this change of policy that he's trying to do something.
yeah,
You know what I mean? There's been so
yeah.
much action in this 100 days of his new presidency. You got to tip the cap to him now. And like you said, Mike, though, the media, I mean, and it's everybody like your John Olivers, your John Stewarts, you
Hmm.
know what I mean? All these
Steve
quote
Colbert.
unquote, yeah, Colbert, right? I mean, so it's not just the New York Times and the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal. Like it's not like for the brainy people. It's also for the masses,
Yeah,
the people that get their news from John Stewart and John Oliver, right?
yep, yep,
Um, so it's just it seems like such a hill to overcome. And then when you have like all this stuff with the stock market and everybody's like Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, he's tanking everything. Oh my God, he's a madman, right?
yeah.
Um,
Well,
you know,
what their
I don't
their
know.
assumption in order to buy that rhetoric, you have to be ignorant, and I mean that in the strongest sense. You have to be ignorant of the situation that this country is in. In other
Well,
words,
they
if
are.
you look, and they are, because if you look at what Trump, if you listen to them talk, and you look at like what Trump is doing, if you're comparing what Trump is doing to everything is fine, everything's cool, everyone's happy, we don't have any problems. Okay, then yeah, it seems pretty dramatic. But if
Yep.
you compare what Trump is doing compared to where the road we have been on, the the road that we have been on, excuse me, is catastrophic.
Yep. Yep.
So it's sort of like they're like, oh, what he's doing is, so different. Okay, so we go back to what we have been doing, and what's that lead? Like, where does that road go? That we
Right.
know that road doesn't end well,
Right,
at least people that think about these
but
things.
they don't know that. Most people don't know that. And when the media is telling them that, oh my God, it's going to be Black Monday and the whole economy is going to fail and we're going to be in a Great Depression again. And oh my God, he's going to lead us into World War III.
Yeah,
Look what's going on in the Middle East. He's buddy buddy with Israel. Israel wants not, the neocons, the Republican neocons. He's one of them now, right?
right.
So there's if you're ignorant, there's fodder for believing in that stuff because he is being so bold,
He's very bold. He's not sheepish. And yeah, we're not even at 100 days yet. But I
right?
mean, you
Right,
look at, and the list is like 50 things long, but you know, you look at like last year, after the Inflation Creation Act went through, and
right.
then we had to listen to 2 years of who was the head of the Fed, like, oh no, there's no inflation.
Oh,
The inflation's not a problem. Do you remember
wait, you
that?
mean yeah, you mean
Janet
the
Yellen.
yes, Janet Yellen. She looks like something out of like
Shape
Labyrinth
Punks,
or
Mike.
Lord of the
This,
Rings, like
yes.
some kind of creature.
It's like Andy Warhol and Pelosi had a baby or something. Yeah, I don't even know. But you got that. You got Biden's decline that they're covering up. The border is secure. The border's
Yeah,
secure.
yeah, the border's
You're
great.
irrational thinking it. I saw a clip the other day of Mayorkas going through an airport, and someone was just like right up in his face with like the microphone. How do you feel about how well the border is closed now? Like, because he was like the border's secure.
It was
So we had to
terrible.
deal with that lie. We had to deal with the Afghanistan withdrawal lie. I mean, in other words, it's like so relentless, and it's like we're supposed to just forget that. And I've got people who their eyes are closed, and they're telling me like, "Oh yeah, man, Trump, he's destroying the economy." I'm like, it's because that's what they're hearing. I'm like, yeah, whatever,
Right,
man. It's like I can't say anything anymore. Like, there's nothing I can say that's going to convince these people anymore. There's just
right.
not.
Oh, what about when he was making federal, like, cuts and all these, they kept everybody like Chuck Schumer and all these people. He's going to kill Medicaid. He's going to
Hmm.
kill Social Security. He's going to kill welfare. He's
Yeah,
going to do this to all the poor people. And like his reps kept saying, none of that's being touched.
yeah.
None of that's being touched. That's not what we're cutting. That's not what Doge is doing. They're getting rid of waste, abuse, and fraud. That's what they're trying to do.
I mean, and you look at um I don't know, man. I mean, it's just you look at where we were going, and you look these people that are so anti-Trump in that they can't even see straight, like they can't even think about things anymore because they're ideologues and they just hate them so much.
Right.
Um, you know, I I don't know. I'm just at a loss. I just don't know how to talk with those people anymore. I just
Right. Well,
because I feel
that's
like we don't want the same thing.
yeah. Maybe
you
we
know
don't.
like I want individual liberty and the rights of the individual, and they want someone in centralized power telling them what to do all day, apparently. I mean, that's seems to be what the difference is. I mean, jumping real quick back to the nuclear breakout thing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like we don't have an analog to this. I mean, back when we were, God, we were probably getting out of college or something, but when North Korea, what was that, 95, 93, whatever,
It
Clinton was
was 90.
president.
Yeah, Clinton.
But North Korea was looking around and seeing how other countries without nuclear weapons were being treated, and they're kind of a backwards country, but whatever, they were acting in what they thought were their best interests. And Clinton, is the same thing we're dealing with Iran right now. Like, okay, well, you can use it for energy and you can get to this, but you can't get to 90%. And because we're going to send people in to be inspectors and all that stuff. And then they shut the
Right.
inspectors out, and there's
Yep.
all this dilly-dallying. And then lo and behold, they had a breakout and they had like three warheads. And then that was pretty much the end of the negotiations, you know?
Yep. And now
It's
have
like that
yeah.
was
Now what
it.
do they have?
And now they have probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I mean, you talk about like a threat. I mean, they've got weapons that, and they're crazy enough to use them, and their leaders don't give a crap about their people. So it's like, how do you even retaliate? I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
know.
mean,
And then people forget too, though, speaking of North Korea, I think the first president that ever went and had a sit down with him and got them to make some concessions on the nuclear front was Trump.
yeah, stepped over
Yeah.
into the DMZ. That was so crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy, but he did it. You know what I mean? So maybe the talk with Iran is Saturday.
I think it's Saturday.
I think
I
it's Saturday. I thought I
Yeah,
read that. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to drum up the fear in people that already hate Trump and give them talking points so that they can get in your face at parties and go bananas at a protest or whatever. So the media is just feeding chum. They're throwing chum in the water for them.
yeah,
But I think they're also trying to get people that maybe were Democrat that bailed on them and went with Trump. They're trying to create buyer's remorse in those people as well, so that maybe when the midterms come, they'll say, "Oh, I was wrong. Trump is doing all these horrible things, so I better vote Democrat again." You know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean, they're
yeah.
definitely, yeah, that's what
I
that's
mean,
what they're doing.
and
And
it's
and unfortunately the world is such a crazy place right now on so many different, like people are like, "Hey, how come there's not peace in Ukraine already?" And I'm
right.
like, because he's not a
He-
magician.
right.
He's not
Exactly.
he's not Gandalf.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we saw the Zelensky thing. We saw how much the Democrats riled Zelensky all up before he went into that meeting, making demands and shit. So that's got to be worked out with, and you're dealing with Putin, okay, who everybody's like, oh, he's a
he,
maniac and he's evil. Okay, so we're dealing with evil, right? So how
yeah.
you gotta get evil to sit down with this guy who may be ripping us off. I still think Zelensky, I mean, there's people getting rich in Ukraine. I've no doubt about it.
There's a lot of money going through there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like
So,
any war. Yeah,
and then you have Gaza with Israel, and now you got Iran, and you got the bombers behind you going over there. We're already what was it? Trump's already bombing Yemen
yeah.
To get the Houthis to stop.
Stop them
So
from hitting.
yeah, so it's just so I mean, if you're one of these people on the fence, or you haven't really figured out Trump, or you always leaned Democrat but you went with Trump this time, and then you're looking at all these different theaters, you're probably shitting in your pants. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
the media just wants you to. They want to just drum up all the negative and not really explain what Trump might be doing or how it might be better for the country and how these things are necessary and how peace treaties take time.
Hmm.
That's all rational. They don't want people to be rational. They want them jumping out windows
They
and
want
shit.
and they want it fast, and it's like
Yeah.
Ukraine is another great example. The story is another great example of what we're talking about as far as like, no one's looking at reality or looking at the alternatives because it's like, okay, Trump wants to bring peace. He wants in order to protect the Ukraine in the future, because Zelensky wants a guarantee that the US or NATO will come to their defense, right?
Right.
And Trump's not, no one's going to do that because you're basically just cocking the trigger for another outbreak with Russia because
Yep.
Russia doesn't want. So Trump comes up with this brilliant idea with the minerals where he's like, look, you've got this natural resource, you need money, but you don't have the technology or the industrial infrastructure to get to this stuff. It's not, you can't get it out of the ground
Right.
in a way to get it to market. And we can. So we'll come over. You give us like exclusive rights to mine this stuff. We're paying you for it. So you're getting it out of the ground. You're getting so you'll have investment coming into your country, giving you money. And by the
Right.
way, there's going to be thousands of Americans here because they're going to be running the
Mm-hmm.
running the mining operations and teaching people. And you know what happens when you have thousands of Americans in your country? Putin doesn't come strolling through again. So,
Exactly.
but no one can just take 2 seconds and listen to the man, right?
Right.
It's a genius idea. They're just like, Trump wants to like, rape the Ukraine,
Right,
or
right, right,
whatever.
right.
And then so they never present the alternative. The alternative is, okay, everything just keeps going on status quo. And you know what happens when everything just keeps going on the way it's going? Putin wins
Yeah, and people
because
die.
because he has 40 times the number of people. He's got 100 times the military. He's got access to people to just throw into the trenches. Ukraine said they've been capturing Chinese guys now, in addition to the Korean guys.
Yeah,
Um, so they act like whatever Trump does, it's like the alternative is doves and peace and Putin gets killed and Ukraine takes over Russia. Like that's never going to happen.
right, right.
It's just never going to happen. So if you're looking at that as your alternative, of course what he's asking seems crazy. But if you're looking at the fact that, as it stands now, the Ukrainians have put up quite a fight and all that, but it's if this goes on 10 years, they don't win. I'm sorry
No,
to
no, right.
burst everyone's bubble.
There's no end game to keep to pouring more money into this just so that more people can die. I mean,
Yeah.
or
And
things escalate to a dangerous degree.
yeah, I
You
just
know,
when he a couple weeks ago he was
I
like,
mean,
I'm tired of
globally
oh,
dangerous.
globally dangerous.
Yeah,
But a couple weeks ago when he was being interviewed, he's like, I'm just tired of seeing thousands of people die. He's like, thousands and thousands of Russians, thousands and thousands of Ukrainians, young men dying every day, every week. I'm like, and then there's people out there like, this guy's Hitler. I'm
yeah,
like,
I know.
he has actual compassion,
Yeah,
which I don't see in our propagandistic press. I don't see
no.
that level. I don't see anyone on the leftists saying like we need to stop this killing. I never
Right.
hear them say that about this situation. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got Elon Musk now that's supposedly a Nazi. How is this? I mean, are we in fifth grade? Are we at the playground? Because it seems
Hmm.
like that. I mean, I don't understand these people with the protest this past weekend, and they've got pictures of Musk as a Nazi. I'm just like, I don't even want to talk to you people. Like, that's so retarded. Like, are you guys retarded? Like, really retarded? Like,
Yeah.
clinically, to call someone a Nazi? I mean, how is he a Nazi? Like, I don't even like even I okay, I get if you don't like him, but how do you get that he's a Nazi? And they're like, oh, because he did this salute. I'm like, okay, yeah, you called him,
Yeah.
he's a
Right.
he's a Nazi. All
He's a
right.
Nazi.
I
And
don't
I
know.
love it. And I love that it wasn't too long ago that he was the fucking hero of the left for coming up with these awesome electric cars that were going to save the world. And he was this great environmentalist hero and a
Oh,
genius, and we love him.
dude,
And then
there's yeah,
and then suddenly he wasn't far left. He was a centrist who always voted Democrat, so he leaned left, no doubt about it. But then he came out. He was outspoken about how he had to become a Republican because the left was so far gone. And then all of a sudden he was persona non grata. And then
yep.
he bought Twitter, and the rest is history. Suddenly there was like a free market of ideas again, and that allows Trump to win, right? So, and now he's very involved, right? So he's people look at him like Trump's right hand guy, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So if you hate Trump, you have to hate
You
Musk.
have to hate him.
You have to the point where you're gonna, and that's what I love, like these funded protests. I mean, you can't kill Doge fast enough because the money's still getting to these
I
a-holes
know.
with the pre-made signs and all this. That money's coming from NGOs, coming from God knows where, George Soros, and now they're out in full tilt already. You have crazy, they all seem to be transgender people blowing up
It
Tesla dealerships and shit with Molotov cocktails and guns.
yeah.
I mean, and then people are keying the cars and they're spray painting swastikas on them. And these
The
are grown ass adult Americans.
yes. I mean,
Like
and
what happened to you? Like you woke up one day, you dropped your kid off at school,
he went and keyed
right?
someone's
Maybe you
car.
maybe you posted some anti-Trump stuff on your Facebook page for all your friends, right? And
Right.
then you went into Target and you bought what you needed and you went back to your car and there's a Tesla. Ooh, I'm gonna key this car.
With nine
Never mind.
cameras on it. It's got
Yeah,
nine
never
cameras.
never mind. There's like 10 cameras on the thing, and you're a grown ass adult with
Yeah.
your own bills and your own car and your own children.
Yeah.
I
It,
mean,
it's
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 unbelievable.
it's like mass psychosis. I
Yep,
mean,
it's Trump derangement syndrome. Now it's Musk derangement syndrome.
and it is. I mean, when I first heard about TDS, I thought I was like, hey, that's kind of funny, but it's true, man.
It's a
It's
thing.
so true. It is it's an illness. I really think it is. It's a mental illness. I mean, they've got what was I going to say about? Oh man, I just totally.
No,
Oh,
about
oh,
who?
I remember now.
Yeah,
So I live in the DC area. I'm all around DC, um, and surrounding suburban areas all the time. So it was bad enough when Tesla really started taking off, and I had to have to see all the insufferable people who were driving Teslas with the license plates that said like climate change, like without the vowels, or like no gas, or all the vanity plates that were like all virtue signaling, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then
Well,
like the stickers, they got to drive in the HOA lanes here in Maryland, so they had the HOA sticker. Anyway, so like a week and a half ago, I started seeing like anti-Elon Tesla Club stickers, or the one that says like felon and the F is, you know, red, and then ELON is in white, and it's in like the Tesla car font. I've seen at least 3 dozen of those things stuck on Teslas. So now it's like these people, they have to have the virtue signaling license plate and the trendy car when it came out, like 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And then on the same car now, for no reason, in 3 months, now they hate Elon Musk and they have to put a sticker on their car for their fellow ill people to be like, I know I'm driving a Tesla, but I hate Elon, so don't key my car. You know what I mean? Like that's
yeah,
how
yeah. It's
they
like
they
it's
can't even
like
get out of their own way.
no, it's like. But if you remember during the 2020, the Black Lives Matter destructive riots, cities burning, stores being looted, all this shit. There were storefronts. I remember even like, where I live, where when they boarded up the windows, but they would put BLM, don't break in. We support BLM. Please don't break in our store. Please, I'm begging,
Yeah,
that not to be robbed.
yeah.
Because we're with the cause, man. We'll bend the knee. Oh, it was so
It's
pathetic.
it's so
It
pathetic, man.
Yeah, and I love that. I didn't realize people were doing that with their because that's another thing. Most people who bought Teslas who were all part of this whole green movement, I imagine back when these things came out, most of them were pretty left. They were
Yeah,
environmentally conscious people that wanted to have they were willing to spend the extra money
yeah.
for this, you know, high-tech new automobile. I love
And
it.
yeah, it's just again,
They,
and
they're
it's
eating
just
their own.
so they're eating their own, and it's just so irrational. Again, I still people, I just from a societal standpoint, a sociological view, how people were able to whip up such a percentage of our population to the point where they just hate Elon Musk. It's astonishing. I mean, it really shows you the power of propaganda and the
Yeah,
power of advertising and the power of repeating a message, the power of, the talking points where whether you listen to the radio or you're at the water cooler or you turn on the news or you're at the airport watching CNN, you're hearing the same keywords. You know what I mean? You're hearing the
yeah.
same things being said again and again and again. And then people go key a car. It is scary how easy it is to manipulate people.
It really is. It really does make you realize, even though, we've been around as a country for almost 250 years and, human civilization has been around for, thousands of years or hundreds of years, however far back you want to go. You'd think there'd be things that we'd figure out
Yeah.
by now, and
Yeah.
it's still so basic. We're so dumb, to fall for this crap
Yeah.
that a government and government sponsored media, because that's what it is. You know what I mean? Or it's corporate. It's corporate sponsored. It's big pharma. It's telecommunications companies that own this stuff. Whoever is behind all this, people is so easily like malleable and brainwashed. It's just sad. It makes
It
me it
is.
bums me out. And like even if I don't know. Let's say I was a Democrat, right? And I don't like Trump. I'm not psychotic about it, but I just know I'm going to vote for, I guess, Kamala, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm ready to do that.
yeah,
If I'm watching the news and I'm seeing these people, I remember I really couldn't get over when Trump did the rally at Madison Square Garden, okay, with Tony Hinchcliffe or whatever.
yeah,
He made the Puerto Rican
yeah,
joke, or
yes,
okay, when Trump had that rally in the Garden and CNN, MSNBC, ABC, they were bringing up the fact that in the 1930s there was a real live Nazi party rally at the
yeah,
Garden. So
yeah,
this isn't the first time that
yes.
that a Nazi fascist, like, how do you say, like, the fact that if that with a straight face they were saying this and people were eating it up, like, I'd like to think that I would realize, okay, this is a little over the top.
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
just this is just bullshit.
yeah,
And
yeah.
people don't, they ate it up. They were just like, oh yeah, he's a Nazi.
Or they know it and they don't care. I mean, if
No,
someone,
I
yeah,
think they're dumb.
I do too.
I think they buy it. They totally buy it. If you watch some of these man on the street things on YouTube where they interview these protesters, there's like two types. There's either the one that really doesn't know why they're there.
Right.
Okay. And usually they're the younger ones, like whoever the guy with the microphone, they'll ask him some questions. So why are you here? And what do you know about this? And, you say from the river to the sea. What river? What sea? And they have no fucking
They have
idea.
no idea. Yeah,
Right. Okay. But then you have the older crowd, like the boomers, or maybe the Gen Xers, and they're crazy.
yeah.
They'll scream at the guy,
They'll
and
spit.
they're spitting all the media's bullet points, and like they're informed, but they're informed by the state media.
Yep.
And they're in a frenzy, the spit coming out of their mouths and shit. Like, they just, I mean, it's unbelievable,
There,
and that's what we're dealing with.
there's a
And that's
friend.
and that's the 75 plus million people that voted somehow for Kamala Harris,
Yeah,
or
and
whatever the final number was. It's frightening.
again, they are. On one hand, it's infuriating because it's like, don't you guys understand what's going on? But they feel that they're informed because they watch the same things, and everyone that they deal with in their life, or most of the people they deal with in their life, echo back the same thing that they're saying. And
Right.
they're just not critical thinkers. They're just not thinking about it. I mean, for me personally, I'd love to do an episode one time where we just talk about how we got to the point where we think what we think. I think it would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me personally, it was, you know, I was always interested in the news, even from an early age. I mean, I've talked about this before. I remember being like 7 or 8 years old, and I would read the Baltimore Sun. We got the paper, the newspaper every day at the Evening Sun. And my parents would read it, and I'd read the comics. And then when I was done with the comics, I'd give it to them, and then I would read like the front page and, see like what stories are above the fold, below the fold, like what I just found it interesting. So I was always engaged with it. But when I had my own business and I had to spend a lot of time at county permit offices around Baltimore and DC, that's where I really started understanding how government, not just how government works, but how different it is from the private sector. And the one thing I always used to tell this story where, if you go to a business, like say you go to Home Depot, right?
Yeah.
All the employees have to park. If you go to any Home Depot, a lot of times, if you go about 2/3 away from the store in the parking lot, you'll
Yeah.
see a yellow line that traverses the entire parking lot. And the reason, and Lowe's has this too in a lot of places, the reason they have that is the employees have to park on the far side of that line so that customers can come and park close to the store. But then I would go to the permit office in Baltimore County in Towson, Maryland. And like all the parking that was right next to the building was all for the employees.
Hmm.
And if you were going there to pull a permit, you had to park in like Bumblefuck Park Garage, on the other side of town. or get dropped off. And there was always a sense where, like, you know, they were doing you a favor. Whereas at a store, it's like, oh, how can I help you? Here it was
Right.
like, just sit there. We're still talking about the salad I had this morning. Just you can sit and wait another 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That really opened my eyeballs on a small scale uh, to what happens when you give a bureaucracy control over your life and you fund them and they have no accountability. That's what you get on a very small scale, but it scales out
Yeah.
to the federal government. I mean, it's the same issue. So it was very clear to me from an early age, and as I got older, it is like the emperor has no clothes. I would like see things or say things, and people are like, "Oh, Michael, he's Michael." You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Am I the only one seeing this?"
Right.
Apparently. But anyway,
Yeah, well,
I,
Mike, speaking of that though, as you said, oh, we should do an episode where we talk about how we arrived at our sort of, values, belief systems, whatever, how you look at the government or at the world. We actually, if you remember, I'm scrolling through as we speak
mm,
our page with our thumbnails, right?
yeah,
And I'm trying to figure it out because we did an episode. Well, I wasn't there as Ha Carl was not part of the episode. This was an older
an
episode.
older one.
Yeah, yeah, it was that other guy.
Yeah.
But there was an episode where we had a guest. It was Tor was
Hmm.
on, and I wish I knew the name of it or what episode it was, but it was kind of like it was sort of like what you're talking about. Like, what do you think should be the role of government, or
Oh yeah.
how is it you came to believe the things that you believe?
Yes, I do
Um,
remember that.
you remember that?
I
Yeah,
do. I don't
and
remember the number, but I can look it up.
yeah, I'm looking at, like I said, I'm looking at thumbnails and titles, and I'm trying to figure out which one it could possibly be. I mean, because this is episode two. We've made a lot
Oh
of
yeah, it's a
episodes.
lot. It's a lot of possibilities to
Yeah,
look at.
this show's been on for four
I
years.
I just find, and again, this is just my own personal experience, my own lived experience, my truth, right? But
Yeah,
generally what I see is people who are for an individual liberty and consent of the governed and representative government and all that good stuff tend to have a positive view of their fellow human beings.
yeah,
And people who are more leftist, like far leftists, like people, like Maoists, American Marxists, and things like that, people on the far left, people that go after Elon Musk, tend to have an incredibly negative view of their fellow human beings. That they feel that, unless their fellow human beings are coerced and forced to do the right thing, that they won't do the right thing. You know what I mean? I know I'm speaking in generalities, but
no,
that's
I
been
hear
my
you.
experience. Like people that are progressive or want a strong centralized government kind of ruling things have a lot of disdain for their fellow human beings. It's been my experience. They just look down on them and they're pessimistic. And generally, people that are more uh, liberty minded are much more positive.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Maybe. I know. I'm
Maybe
saying it's just
I
my
know
own.
I don't
Yeah.
know that because I'm I lean right, obviously. I'm conservative. I think
But you hate people?
no, I don't hate people, but I recognize the capacity for wrongdoing. And I think the problem with the left is they're self-hating.
Mm,
Okay, I mean, so the modern left is nuanced. Like I think like your average, white liberal college educated woman, she probably thinks that, that there's something inherently wrong with herself and other people like
wow.
her. But if you're not in the fold, like if you're part of the marginalized, black and brown people, gay people, whatever,
Intersectionality. Yeah.
those people can't do any wrong.
Yes, correct.
They need all the help they can get because they're just really nice people that haven't had the breaks that I've had, and so they can do no wrong. So we need more social programs, and we need more inclusivity, and we need more DEI because there's nothing wrong with those people. It's just us. We're the colonizers. We're the bad people.
The
We're
collective
capable.
guilt. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I mean. So I think it's a little nuanced how they view the world because there's certain parts of the population that if you're a leftist, those people can do no wrong at all.
They're untouchable. Yeah.
They're untouchable, right? I mean, never mind statistics, never mind crime, never mind culture, never mind any of that. Everybody's everybody's great except for myself and, other straight white people. I mean, you know what I
Well,
mean?
they
So,
view, yeah, they view their self worth or their self image based on this intersectional stuff of like, well, I'm white, so that means I had unfair advantage, and you know, I have this guilt, or I haven't had this lived experience, um, which is very destructive because you're putting people into groups and you're not viewing people as individuals. You're not giving people their own individual dignity. You're
right,
just looking at their immutable traits and trying to presume like you know where their heart and mind is on things. It's
right,
really reductive and it's far from being progressive in my opinion.
right.
It's very closed-minded to
Yeah.
presume to know uh what other people feel about something. I don't know, based on what they look like.
Yeah. Or and also just to presume that they can do no wrong based on what they look like.
Correct. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like period. They no, no that's not his fault that he shot somebody while robbing a liquor store. He
Or
had no he had no agency in any of that,
well, it's
because
like
he's
this story that just came out of the kid. And again, I'm not coming down on either side of this, but I'm looking
right.
at it from a sociological standpoint. This high school kid, tragic story, track meet,
Oh,
stabbed his
yes.
teammate to
Yeah.
death, killed him,
Yeah.
over some dispute, whatever. And the kid that did the stabbing was black. The kid that died was white.
Yeah.
And for our news, like for where we are at in our society, it's almost like that's all you need. That's all people want to know. Like that's all they need to know. The kid that did the stabbing, he's saying it was self-defense.
Right.
Um, and they've raised over like $200,000 for his
Yeah.
defense already. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I've dug into this and there's still no real corroborated story of exactly what happened. Apparently, he was in a tent on the opposing for that was to be used for the opposing team,
Yeah.
and his teammate, who's this guy, was trying to get him out of the tent. And whether there was some shoving or pushing, or I don't know if there's a history between these two. Like I said, I don't know. But then apparently this guy went in his bag, grabbed a knife, and stabbed the guy in the chest. So who knows? I don't know. I don't, but people are already like, oh, of course it was just self-defense. Everyone gets in their little lanes and everyone has
Yeah.
their little stories. And then there's people that are like, this black guy, he was definitely guilty. And I'm like, you don't know definitely nothing because
Well, yeah, no. And
nothing's come out yet. Like, but we don't even
no,
need the
people no,
facts
people
anymore.
I've heard people in that case talking about how the kid who died was like a racist or something.
Yeah,
Like they've
yes.
already jumped to that conclusion. Like he
Yep.
was a white supremacist, this kid, because like I guess he was like in a military family and they like to hunt and there's pictures of him with you know what I mean? So it's like the Kyle Rittenhouse treatment all over
Yeah,
again.
all over. Who needs facts, man? We already
Yeah,
got our story,
it's unbelievable.
you
It's
know?
crazy.
And then you get in the other story and we can just touch on it, but this whole district court judge
Oh
fiasco that's
yeah.
going on now throughout our country where
Yeah.
someone like the media and the left wants you to believe that it's completely rational to have the lowest possible level federal judge, of which we have like 750 in this country,
Right.
be able to, from their desk in Albuquerque,
Hmm.
overrule the president of the United States on anything.
Right.
And it's
Turn the plane around.
turned the plane around. I'm like, again, I was talking to someone about this, and they're like trying to explain this to me that it's totally legit, and I'm like, and they don't know, and I didn't get into it, but it's like the district courts, they're not in the Constitution; they come from Congress, right? They're the only court in the Constitution is the Supreme Court, and guess what? Do you know? Do you know that the not a Supreme Court justice, not even the head justice by himself, can just stand up and decree something and override the president or Congress. They have to like have a decision amongst a quorum.
Right.
But somehow we're supposed to, like ABC News, George Stephanopoulos wants you to believe that, Bobby Wallflower in Albuquerque can just come up with a decision and overrule the president of the United States. I'm like, this is so absurd. I mean, why are we even dealing? This is so obviously court shopping and obstructionist.
Oh, and that particular judge, you're talking about the whole case where
Boasberg,
yeah. Wait, what's his name?
Boasberg, he's the one that said turn the planes around. But
Yeah, right.
there's other
Yeah, this
ones about the
this one.
firings.
Oh yeah, there's a few of them, and there's different things that they're trying to impede Trump from doing executing what he's trying to do. But
Yeah,
in the case of the judge you're talking about, that was the Trump rounded up, I think, a couple of hundred members of MS-13 and the Trade de Agua, whatever, the Venezuelan gang, I guess,
yeah,
that they had captured, and he made a deal with the president of El Salvador, who's a rock star in my book.
yeah,
He basically said, okay, so the El Salvador president said, hey, fly him down here. We'll stick him in one of our max prisons for the forever. Like we'll
yeah,
lock him up. We'll house him for you. And so Trump shipped him out. And
yeah.
this particular judge tried to put a freeze on it and literally wanted them to turn the plane around. It turns out that that judge, his wife, his sister, his daughter, they're all funded by these, and they're all part of these NGOs. One of them literally is about immigration defense. I think that that's the whole role of the NGO is to help these guys fight deportation.
Yeah.
And one of them has to do with abortion rights. I mean, just whole leftist family that's making that millions of dollars are going through these people to go toward their causes. And this judge is totally impartial. He's got nothing to do with any of that, right?
Supposedly, yeah.
He's calling balls and strikes. That's all he's doing. I mean,
And
it's unbelievable. And like you said, how can one little district court judge tell the president of the United States
it's ridiculous.
how to handle like immigration or what laws he can even use, like the what do they call it, the alien enemies, I forget what law Trump used as a
The,
grounds to
yeah, the
deport these
Wartime
people.
Aliens Act or something like
Yeah,
the
something like
wartime
that.
prisoner
Something like that.
from 1798. And I know it's 1798 because they say it constantly
Yeah,
as
they do.
as a way of like diminishing it, and it's like someone today said they're like, the Constitution was written in 1776 and we follow that pretty closely. You know what I
Yeah, we
mean?
do.
Like,
We do.
and it's
Yeah,
just funny how they argue, oh, it's an old law, and these are like the same people that want to use like the Hatch Act every 5 seconds whenever,
right.
which is even older than that. It's just, God, I don't know. It's
Speaking of
yeah,
which, though, the Supreme Court did come out and they did rule against that district court judge that
yeah.
Trump does have the right. But one negative from that ruling is that Trump, this kind of puts a real wrench in his deportation plans to get rid of upwards of 5, 10 million people. Because basically SCOTUS said, okay, you can do that, but habeas corpus, due process, there's got to be some hearing. Like you got to show, you know what I mean? For these guys, you can't just grab these guys out of the jails, stick them on a plane, and send them. Like they have to have hearings. They're going to have court-appointed immigration lawyers fighting for them. Like it's really going to slow things down. At least that's the reading I took of
It
that case.
yeah, I mean, it
You can't
seems
just
like
round them
it.
up
They have to at least give them an opportunity,
to be
apparently,
heard. Yeah.
which is again, my whole thing is to me it just doesn't make sense, but I whatever. I mean, I'm not interested in violating the law either. my concern was that was only a 5-4 decision by the Supreme Court. So there was
Yeah,
4 U.S. justices that think that it is okay for a district judge who may have never even been a judge before. Like some of these guys are lawyers and they just become judges at the district court
right,
level.
right.
Um, that they can have all this control. And then again, they said it should have been held in Texas because that's where all this was happening. But the Democrats don't do that. They put it in DC because they own the DC Circuit Court. They put it
Right.
out in Seattle, or they do it in Boston because they own those courts. They judge
Well,
shop it.
if you remember too, we talked about this when the Democrats were trying to push that bill that basically would have codified all the immigration that Biden and Mayorkas were allowing, like up to thousands per day and
Yeah,
millions per year. One of the things that law was going to do was that all appeals of all immigration cases were going to that circuit. Were going to be DC.
that's
All
right.
all
That's
of them
right.
all of them were going to be funneled through that court,
Phew, you talk about, I
dodging a
mean, a
bullet.
total disaster.
Yeah, yeah. That yeah. I mean, thank God that didn't. Well, like Trump says, we didn't need a new law. We needed a new president, pretty
That's such
much.
a great line.
Yeah, and he did. He shut it down. The numbers don't lie. Now we
I
just
mean,
got to deal. Now we got to deal with the ones that already got it.
the trick that we have to pull off, or that Trump needs to pull off, people in control now need to pull off, is all of this reform, and the economy has to bounce back
Yeah.
because none of this is going to have any legs if in 4 years there's still all these problems left on the table. Because we talk about the ratchet. it he not only has to make these changes, he has to weatherproof them.
Yeah.
He has to party proof these things because people in the party are going to be in control again. It's the cyclical nature of things. I wish it wasn't
Hmm.
the case.
Well, Mike, but that's the problem. Like that's where a Republican Congress has to do things.
Yeah, they got to codify it.
They got to do things. I mean, and you can barely get them to come in and vote.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's crazy. Like I don't know what Johnson, and that's another thing. Johnson, when Biden was president, they never said a word. But then after Biden was out, he's like, "Oh, I met with him, and he seemed off, and he, all this, you know what I
He's
mean?
another
Like,
one. Yeah,
what?
where were all these people?
Yeah, why didn't you say something when Chuck Schumer was saying he's sharp as a tack?
Yeah,
You know,
he sh- he does
we could have used you.
backflips. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
He's on American Gladiator. You know,
American Ninja. He's
American
dodging.
Ninja Warrior. Yeah,
Yeah.
not
Oh
American
man.
Gladiator, but
Well, Mike, are there any other stories you wanted to touch on? I don't know if we missed
I don't.
anything.
I will say, our entertainment page here at the end, on Netflix, there's a documentary about the Joplin hurricane from 2011, Joplin, Missouri, that Desiree's talked about before too. It is amazing. Like if you have Netflix, I think it's called Tornado. I'm not sure, but anyway,
Right.
just watch the first half because after the first half talks about everything that happened, and then the second half is like all the cheery stories about people who survived and now they like play in a band or something. It just gets boring. But the first
Gotcha.
half, when everything's getting jacked up, it's a lot of cell phone footage from people that were in it, and it is unfreaking believable. Like I just can't believe how big this tornado was. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, that was a good documentary.
All
I
right,
meant to
cool,
say
man.
something to Desiree about it. I didn't know if she had seen it. But yeah, I guess that's it for tonight, Hot
Yeah,
Carl.
we've covered a lot of different stories. I'm sure there's
Yeah,
other things, but we've been on for a while, I think. What do you think?
I think it's time
Yeah, wrap it up.
that we wrap it
Wrap
up.
things up. All right,
Take
man.
care.
We'll see you next week,
See you
everybody.
next week.